So I wanted to do this video about something I had been really paying close attention to. Since we've had this coronavirus pandemic, there have been a lot of complaints about inequality, racial inequality, the police shootings, and a lot of the things that have been happening to people who have pretty much fared very badly. A lot of death, and also conspiracies around all of this pandemic talk, and there's been back and forth. There's been some bitter views about all of it, and then there's been some other things that have happened as a result of COVID-19. Other than just deaths, there's been the awakened community of Black and brown people, and people that are poor, and people that are disenfranchised and marginalized individuals, in terms of uh, not having enough money to get through this pandemic, or working jobs that don't pay very well, or they don't have very good health care or no health care at all. But meanwhile, we have other people we realize that are doing a lot better financially. They're able to have health care. They're able to move away and live in vacation homes. They're able to do a lot better financially, and they're making more money. And so the Amazon CEO, Jeff Bezos, actually has made a lot of money during this pandemic, as a matter of fact. And so I wanted to take you to Jeff Bezos, who has made a lot of money um, during this pandemic. And he is actually, there was an article saying that he is more than 200 billion, making him the richest person in the world. And so I wanted you to look at that. And so Jeff Bezos, during this pandemic, he's been doing really well financially. And that I want to go into. So Jeff Bezos is now worth more than 200 billion, making him the richest person in the world by nearly $90 billion. And so Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos is now worth more than $200 billion, according to the Forbes and Bloomberg magazine. And so that makes him worth almost 90 billion more than the second richest person in the world, Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates. And so if you want to know who Jeff Bezos is and where I'm getting at on this in a minute, this is a still photo of him, and that is Bill Gates. And so who Bill Gates is, has a fortune of about 116 billion, according to Bloomberg. So Forbes and Bloomberg usually deal with wealth. They're magazines and companies that have to do with, also, you will hear a lot about that in the stock market. And so that makes him worth 90 billion more than the second richest person in the world, which is Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates, who has a fortune of 116 billion, according to Bloomberg. So Bezos has more wealth than anyone else has ever had, even when adjusted for inflation, Forbes reported. So at the height of the dot-com boom, Gates was worth an estimated $158 billion in today's, according to Forbes magazine. And the milestone comes as Amazon continues to thrive during COVID-19 pandemic, thanks to the surge of online sales. So a lot more people have to shop online, or it's safer to shop online for some people. They feel that comfort of shopping at home and having things delivered to your door. So Jeff Bezos, the billionaire CEO of Amazon, the richest person in the world, now has a fortune that exceeds 200 billion, and Forbes and Bloomberg has reported. So Forbes estimated that Bezos was worth 204.6 billion when the markets closed Wednesday, and Bloomberg pegged his wealth at 202 billion. So it is a status that hasn't been reached before. even when adjusted for inflation. So Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates, the second richest person in the world with a net worth of $116.1 billion, now trails Bezos by a distant $88.5 billion. Gates' $100 billion fortune at the height of the dot-com boom in 1999 would still be worth $158 billion in today's dollars, just three-quarters of what Bezos currently is worth, Forbes reported. And so Bezos' fortune is also the equivalent of 1% of the U.S. gross domestic product, which sat at $21.6 trillion in the first quarter of 2020, but dropped at $19.4 trillion last quarter, according to the Department of Commerce. So Amazon has experienced a surge in online sales during the COVID pandemic as people turn to online shopping while inside their homes. Okay, so sending the company's market capitalization through the roof is now valued at $1.7 trillion. Last quarter, Amazon blew past Wall Street's expectations, reporting $5.2 billion in net profit. And the story continues. It says that even after warning investor it would spend all of $4 billion it had expected to make for the quarter on COVID-related initiatives. So as a result, Bezos has seen his net worth nearly double during this pandemic. So jumping from $97 billion from the pandemic lows in early March, according to Bloomberg, most of Bezos' wealth comes from his stock in Amazon, and in which he has 11% stake, according to 2020's SEC filing cited by Bloomberg. He also owns the Washington Post, the space exploration company Blue Origin, which competes with the likes of Elon Musk's SpaceX. So Bezos, Musk, Gates, and a handful of American ultra-wealthy have seen extraordinary gains during the pandemic, even with roughly 10% of Americans still out of work. So the report last week from the Institute for Policy Studies found that Bezos has the biggest beneficiary of pandemic in terms of total net worth increase since mid-March, while Musk saw the highest percentage gains with 228% boost, taking his personal fortune from $24.6 billion pre-pandemic to $73.1 billion as of August 13th. So the report, which analyzed how the dozens richest American fortunes have grown in the past few months, included data as of August 13, meaning it hadn't even accounted for more recent gains. Musk's wealth, for example, climbed to another $8 billion in one day alone shortly after IPS published its report, as Tesla stock soared to an all-time high and surpassed $100 billion on Wednesday, according to Bloomberg. And so by comparison, U.S. households' wealth during the first quarter plummeted by 5.6%, the largest drop since 1950s, and more than half of the U.S. households have lost income this year. So wealth and income inequality in the U.S. had already hit record highs before the pandemic, but in a sign that the economic fallout from the coronavirus has further concentrated wealth at the top. Data from the U.S. Federal Reserve shows that the top 1% Americans actually saw their share of overall wealth in the U.S. decrease from 29.3% to 27.8% during the first quarter of 2020. Even at those at the very top saw massive gains. And so in particular, those gains have gone to executives, founders, early investors of the largest U.S. tech companies now, which surged past Wall Street expectations last quarter. So the 12 wealthiest Americans include IPS and analysts, 8 hailed from the tech industry. Okay, so the tech industry is really the people that are involved in that have made the most money during this pandemic alone. I want to show you the smart cities that they are looking at. They're looking at turning, this pandemic has been so lucrative and made them so wealthy that they're even looking at turning cities, whole cities, into smart cities. Of course, it leaves some cities open to cyber attacks on the civilization, but these are the cities, or these are sort of pre-blueprints of what cities would actually look like, where they're hubs, smart cities, where it basically benefits these people who are in the tech industry. And these are, I'm going to run through them. This one was the Bosch Smart Vision for the Future. It's a smart cities world. This one is a look at smart cities of the future. Technological impact on the smart cities of the future. And you see this right here, how they recreated what does a smart city of the future look like. And so there's lots of blueprints of what smart cities would look like. Even Elon Musk was talking about, instead of flying, some of the futuristic movies we've seen the flying cars, but he was talking about building cars underground and going underground, where you could travel underground, underneath cities, and travel by way of that. And so cities of the future will be smart cities. And so that is what this is preparing for. National Vision Plan even designs Earth Synergy cities, having to deal with probably climate, the effects of climate and whatnot. So these things are happening as we speak, and I could just run through. This will shape the future smart cities in India. So they have plans, the data-driven future of the smart city. And so Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, and all of these individuals have created plans. Amazon, all these empty big malls, will soon, all these department stores that are closing, there is a reason. Amazon reportedly wants to take over JCPenney's and Sears stores to turn malls into giant fulfillment centers. And so a lot of these stores are closing, okay? And so I close that. And we've seen that. And a lot of people are looking at doom and gloom. But for the rich, wealthy individuals, it isn't doom and gloom. It is a creation of money and new prospects for their businesses to take off. Amazon is in talks with the biggest mall owner in the U.S. to turn retail space into Amazon fulfillment centers. This is in the Wall Street Journal, reported on Sunday. The deal could involve Amazon taking over spaces formerly as that were known as occupied by Sears and JCPenney's, both of which have filed for bankruptcy and closed dozens of stores. And Amazon would benefit by gaining well-located warehouses, space in cities, and could decrease delivery time in orders. But fulfillment centers would attract much clientele to alien malls that have been closed down and they've been abandoned for maybe years, not even years, just been closed down, or their businesses are closing inside of them and therefore they close. Department stores and malls across the U.S. are struggling to stay in business as shoppers increasingly turn to e-commerce, is what it's called. We're coming to, the pandemic is pushing us into an age of e-commerce because people are shopping online. It could soon be transformed into Amazon fulfillment centers. Amazon's in talks with Simon's Property Group, America's largest mall owner, to turn empty retail spaces into Amazon warehouses that process and ship online orders, the Wall Street Journal reported on Sunday. So, as part of the deal, Amazon could take over anchor department stores, spaces previously occupied by Sears and JCPenney's, both of which have filed bankruptcy and closed dozens of stores in recent months. So Simon is pursuing an acquisition of JCPenney's, which would grant it more control over how the store spaces are used, the Journal reported. So the deal could benefit Amazon by providing well-located warehouse space in cities across the U.S. by allowing online retailers to decrease its delivery time on shipments. Some Amazon fulfillment centers already occupy spaces in old strip malls that have gone out of business as well. So Bezos is on to bigger and greater projects. Elon Musk and Bill Gates and some of the others. And so Amazon representative Rachel Leidy told Business Insider that the company would not comment on rumors of speculation, so mall landlords typically prioritize finding tenants that will bring in new customers like stores and gyms. Amazon fulfillment centers wouldn't draw people other than its own employees, but during the COVID pandemic, traditional retail stores have seen wavering revenue while Amazon sales have surged. So that is where we're getting at. Cities of the future. And if you want to see what that whole thing entails, cities of the future, there is a video on cities of the future. I will leave it in the bottom of my video so you can see what Bezos has been doing, and it'll probably even have in the feed what Elon Musk is planning to do. And so I feel this is all orchestrated, and that's what I've been saying before. And it seems like the poor stay poor and the wealthy get more wealthy. And we are seeing that, and we are seeing the ideas that they are coming up with that are actually in talks and in the works as we speak right now. And so although you hear all of this craziness that has happened where people's relatively their incomes are thwarted because of the pandemic, on the contrary, you have some of the super ultra rich and the 1% doing exceptionally well during this time of COVID-19. So I want to leave you with that video, and then I will leave the titles of these articles in the bottom of my video. So take a look at what's going on, because I feel a lot of this has been orchestrated, and a lot of this, if you realize, there has been discrimination in the tech industry where black people were not hired in the high-tech industry. So if you could take a look at that as well. And so I will leave that. And I even heard where Elon Musk was making it so that we would have set incomes. Who orchestrates the set incomes? Who would get how much, and how would people live? That seems like a big, huge issue. And so it says African Americans face systemic obstacles in getting good jobs. Also in high-tech industry. Okay, so here's why women, blacks, Hispanics are leaving tech, which you probably shouldn't, but if you're even allowed to get in it, it says blacks are largely left out of high-paying jobs. And then, let me see. I know that I was hearing that it's hard for them to even get hired into the high-paying jobs. So diversity in STEM workforce varies widely across jobs. So there's several articles here that point out that there's even been a problem for people of color getting into these jobs. So I'm going to leave you with that, and pretty much that's the end of this video. Like, comment, subscribe, and thanks for listening.